So far we've talked about linear relationships and quadratic relationships, or functions, and today we're going to talk about exponential functions. And exponential functions are something you actually may come across in your career or in your life at some point, because exponential functions can be used to model a lot of things. For instance, the growth of a population of humans or animals, such as rabbits, can be modeled with an exponential relationship. The breakdown of medication in the system after a dose of medication is administered. We have an example of that here. There's another use for exponential functions. The half-life of compounds, chemicals, things like that. The cooling of liquids can be modeled with exponential growth. And also the growth of money. Let's see if I can find one of those. Here's an example that you're definitely going to come across as you take out loans or invest money. Compound interest is modeled with exponential growth functions. So it's really a great topic to learn, and it's not too tough because a lot of what we do, you're going to use a calculator. So grab your calculator. I'm going to grab mine. And we're going to learn how to enter exponents into the calculator and compute exponential functions. The first thing you need to realize, the difference between a quadratic function and an exponential function, both use exponents, is in an exponential function you will find the variable in the exponent. The variable is in the exponent. So that's the difference. Let's go down here. 4 to the negative third power. If our variable was in the exponent, in this case we'd be putting in a negative 3 for the variable. And find your exponent key on your calculator. On the TI-30X2S, the exponent key is the upside down V key, or the caret key. And that's typical for most calculators. Other calculators, such as the TI-30, may have an exponent key that looks like this, y to the x power. Or some of them it's backwards, it's x to the y power. If you can't find your exponent key, please ask me during class. But again, most calculators, it's the upside down V. So let's practice using it. To compute 4 to the negative third power, we enter the base, the 4, just as normal. Then we press that caret or upside down V key, or whichever other exponent key you have, in between the base and the exponent. And then we punch in the exponent. In this case it's a negative 3, so I'm going to use my negative sign and then type in the 3. Alright, in my calculator, here's what it looks like. It looks like 4 upside down V, negative 3. Some calculators it'll look just like it's typed. It really depends. I hit enter, and in this case I get a decimal answer. And let's just write out the whole thing since it's a terminating decimal. 0.015625. This is a number less than 1 because this is really the same as 1 over 4 to the negative third power. Remember that from week 1? This is the same as 1 over 4 to the third power. Alright, let's go on to the next one. 3 to the 4 and 2/10. Again, we type in our base 3, your upside down V key or your exponent key, and then the decimal 4 and 2/10. Now some calculators give you a pair of parentheses for your exponent, mine does not. And this one I think we're going to round to 109/10, 100.9. Alright, the next one's a little bit more complicated, 2/7 to the 3/2 power. One way you could make this one simpler is to use, instead of 3 divided by 2 or 3/2, do you know what 3 divided by 2 is? 3/2 is really just the decimal 1.5. That's what I'm going to use for the exponent. I'm going to use 1.5 because it's a lot easier to work with. Now, in order to raise 2/7 to that power, I have a couple ways I can do that. If I don't have a fraction key, I'm going to use parentheses and do 2 divided by 7 and close my parentheses because I want that whole quotient to get raised to the 1.5 or 3/2 power. So now I'm going to do power up with my exponent key and type in the exponent I'm using, which we've decided 1.5 will be easier. And I get 0.1527, etc. And I'm going to show you how you can do this with your fraction key also. Alright, if you have the fraction key, enter fractions like you normally do. 2, fraction key 7 on mine. My fraction key is the ABC key that I press in between. And now I believe I can get away without parentheses. Let's check it out and see. My power key, exponent key, power up to the 1.5, and let's see if we get the same answer. If we don't, and we do, 0.1527, etc. So it did raise the whole fraction 2/7 to the 1.5 power. I was worried that it would only raise the 7 to that power, but it did do the whole thing. Alright, let's round this to the nearest, let's go to 3 decimal places, 0.153, because there's a 7 following. 0.153. Alright, the next one, getting even more complicated. We have an operation going on in the exponent. So here, I'm going to use parentheses around the exponent to make sure 0.85, 85/100 gets raised to this whole product. Now, I don't need the parentheses around the -2. I'm going to take that out and just, when I get to the exponent, type in 3 times negative sign 2. But then I will close the parentheses I'm using for the exponent. So here we go. 0.85 is my base, my power key, and as I mentioned before, I'm going to use parentheses now to gather up this whole exponent. So I'm going to put in a left parenthesis, mine are here on the calculator, and I'm going to type in 3 times -2. 3 times negative sign 2, and I'm going to close that parenthesis. Take a look at that. My entire exponent is within the parentheses to make sure 0.85 gets raised to this whole product. If I don't put this exponent parentheses, it won't make that times -2 a part of the exponent. Alright, if you've done this correctly, you should get about 2.651. Okay? Alright, let's refresh our memory on exponents, positive, negative, and 0. If you remember from week 1, any number to the 0 power will give you 1, except 0 to the 0 power. That's the only one that doesn't work. That one's undefined. So just to refresh your memory on that, let's put in 5 power up with our power key to the 0. And you'll see that I get 1. Put my favorite number, 7, power up to the 0. Enter. And I get 1. I'm going to do -10 to the 0 power, but I have to put the negative sign with the 10 in a pair of parentheses. Whoops, that's not a parenthesis. Power up to the 0 power, and that too will be 1. Any number to the 0 power is 1, except if I try 0 to the 0 power, I'm going to get error. That one's undefined. We can't do that. Alright? Any number to the first power, you just get that number back. So for instance, 7 to the first power will just give me 7. Any number to the first power will just give me that number back. And finally, a number to a negative power, a number to a negative power is the same as 1 over that number to the positive version of the power. That's the explanation I gave you earlier in the course, where if you've got a base with a negative exponent, he's being a bad partier, he's being obnoxious, you send him to the other floor. If he's upstairs, you send him downstairs. If he's downstairs, you send him upstairs, and then his exponent becomes positive. So for instance, 5 to the -1 power is 1 over 5 to the first power. 2 to the -3 power is 1 over 2 to the third power. Alright?